Hello there, this is Carol Robin King, and I'm going to let you follow along as I work on a piece. I think I'm going to do this bigger, but I wanted to start smaller. And back in art school, we used to do a lot of India ink with watercolor poured over it. And although I couldn't find my India ink, I did use a marker. So just a super sharp, extra fine Sharpie marker, extra fine point, which did the same job. You don't get quite as delicate of a touch as you do with India ink, but at any rate, I think that it'll be all right for a test one. We'll see what happens. I'm going to do some pouring on this one. That's a little bit different if you haven't seen that. Some of it will not be completely wet. Some of it will be because I want to have a few sharp edges. Well, follow along and let's see what happens. You never know with watercolors, you know. I have my big palette this time, so you're not going to be able to see that just because I need to be able to see if I need a certain color. I need to be able to have it handy. So I have pre-mixed quite a bit of these colors, so that I have a little well of water sitting here, a little well with some paint in it, which is necessary if we're going to be pouring it all. And then I have these little pipettes to grab some color and drop it in when I need it. If I was doing a bigger one, I would use these little trays to pre-mix everything in it and then be able to pour it over. But since it's a little one, I think the pipettes will be sufficient. I've attached my paper to a piece of plexiglass so that if I want to tilt it, I can without worrying about the paper folding or water getting under it. If you're pouring in your edge, anything gets under your edges, then it'll make blooms that'll come in around the edges. And if you want that, that's great. But blooms are usually something that you only want in very specific circumstances in watercolor because they can really get away from you. So as usual with watercolor, we're going to start with the lighter color and work to dark, which is the typical technique. So I'm going to do a layer and then I'm going to have to walk away and let it dry for 2-3 hours, or maybe even more, possibly even overnight, and then come back. So we'll be doing this over several days and we'll see what happens. So let's take some plain water and wet the things we know that I want wet right now. And I kind of want a warm glow throughout this whole thing. So I'm going to allow my yellows to go into everything. I can use a little bleed-proof white if I want to later. I'm going to not put water everywhere here because I want to have some sharp lines show up. Okay, well, let's start with yellows. Lemon, of course, should be first as it's the lightest one. I've pre-mixed it, a little well of it. You can see it's fairly tinted. Yeah, that's fairly tinted. I just wanted to see how much color I had on there. I don't have enough on there to move it around. That's better. Sometimes you don't pre-mix enough, and so you have to help it move around a little bit. I have to mix up a little more and come back to it. I've got a little Quinn Gold here, which I absolutely love. This is where you get to see how it moves around a little bit. You can help it with a brush if it's not getting to where you want. I don't want that darker color to get towards the middle. I'm going to toss in just a little bit of Windsor Red. Queen gold up in the trees. Still had a little Windsor red in that. Okay, I don't want that dark right in here. I need to wet this down here so it'll flow a little bit. And I think we need some more warms down here. Oh, I like that yellow. That's a nice cad yellow. Toss some of that up in the trees. I'll clean up right here where I want the light to be. That's our lightest area, is right there. Yeah, there we go. Send some of that color back up to the sky. It's going to be a lot darker before it's over with, but we got to get our beginning colors in here. Let's grab some of that with this. This is just up here in the trees. It's a little pure Queen Gold. And then about a little magenta. That works. Now let's move it around a bit. Okay. I'll wipe some of the excess down here so that it doesn't make I'm going to wipe some of the excess down here and even allow it to soak it up just a little bit. I don't want big blooms down here at the bottom. Some places it might look right, but right around your edges it usually won't, because it'll usually go all around your edges rather than just in a particular place. With blooms, I find that it's better to control them than let them flow freely. I'm going to do the same thing up top. Turn this. The color will flow back into those spots just a little bit. It's just, I don't want it sitting up there real watery. Letting that flow back up for a minute. Remember, watercolors dry roughly, depending on the color, 20 to 30% lighter. Again, remove just a little color up here where I want this light area to be. do a little bit here and there too. Anywhere else that you want a little highlight. A lot of that's going to get buried with our next layer, but it can't hurt to see what happens. I think this is ready to dry. I am going to throw a little bit of my rock salt here because this yellow is not going to come up otherwise. And I want some little rocks at the base of my trees. And if I don't do it right now, it's not going to pull up that yellow. And I'll have to sit there and touch every one of them with bleed proof white, which is kind of a pain. So let's let these rocks work a little bit down here. You can also use masking if you wanted to mask off your rocks, but then you got to sit there and draw them out, and that's kind of a pain. So I prefer to let the rock salt do my work for me. Check it out. Oh, I gotta get some new salt. This stuff got moist, but it still did do some neat stuff. So I'm gonna wipe off the salt. I'm gonna save this stuff because I'll use it again. It didn't do much because I let it sit too long. Okay, you can see how pouring does some neat stuff. This is purely accidental. That's accidental. That's accidental. This little bits that don't have color on them. But I mean, look at what it does to it, right? Okay, I am going to pre-wet the area that I would definitely like this green in. So I'm going to add some blue, because if you want green, you add blue to yellow, right? Isn't that the way that works? Last time I checked, it still works that way. Okay, we've got some good old ultramarine. By pre-wetting the areas, I've sort of kept the blue out of everything else. I don't want that edge quite so sharp, so I'm going to wet coming up to it a little bit. Same right here. Although that I like, it kind of looks like shadows, but perhaps a little too much at the top there, because that should be brighter where the light's hitting it. There we go. I think a little bit of paraline splatter. Does some cool things. I'm going to put a little bit of green back here on this field, because there is a field back there and we want it to be noticeable. Layers are important, distant layers particularly. I'm going to darken this corner a little bit more. I'm not sure, but I think this is indigo. Couldn't swear to it. And that is a little bit of burnt sienna, which is also one of those colors that pushes other colors away. And I love that about it. So you can make it look like you drop a little bit on here, and then you can make it look like grasses by putting your brush through it. Even the end of my brush, I have a brush I sharpen the end on into a pencil sharpener, but I'm not rightly sure what I did with it. Anyway, oh, that's not sharp enough. How about this? Short strikes there, longer strikes further down, short strikes in the distance. Check out this texturing that's going on. Ultramarine does that. I absolutely love that about ultramarine. It just does such wonderful granulating all on its own. You don't have to add granulation medium or anything. It's just there. Very naturally. Okay. Done some scratching. Now let's see what we can't do up top here. I don't know if I want to pour or splatter paint up there. Evidently I want to pour. I do want some greens. Not a lot, but there are some greens left in our woods. I'm going to move that around a little bit. That just lets that color move in that direction a little more. A little darker in the corner. This is that. I think it's indigo. Ooh. I gotta look at what that is, but that's cool. This painting will be available, by the way, when I get it done. So if it's floating your boat, let me know. What I'm going to do is, when I finish it and let it dry really well, I'm going to do what's called a matted sealed, so that it doesn't have to have glass. So I attach it to a MDF board that's been sealed and protected. And then after I attach it and let it dry, I seal it with a UV protective sealer that not only just seals it, but it also protects it from, if you spill your coffee on it or something. think we need some more splattering up here. I'm going to wipe off that color right there because I want the tree to be darker than that background. That's why I wiped in between that tree where it dropped off too far. I'm probably going to have to let this dry a little bit longer. You can see how attractive the colors are by allowing them to mix themselves by just moving the paper. And it just does a lot more interesting things. The top's going to be darker because I want this to look very light. So the top is going to be really dark. And then the trees will be dark, but then you'll have this light area in here. See how this right here wasn't on purpose, but see how it looks like a line of leaves from the trees? Same thing right here. It just looks like a line of leaves of trees, but I didn't do that. That was just the water and the paper and the salt moving around. Pretty nifty. Okay. I think that's it for today. I will see you tomorrow and we'll see what happens.